really be happening. Can it?
Pascal, you are now rocking with that dude Pascal.
What's up? There's a serious bombshell that just dropped just a few hours ago, and I have to share this with you guys. But first, before we get into this, I have to give you guys a little bit of background information, okay? Just the other day, Trump was explaining why he doesn't hang out, or he stopped hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. What was their fallout? What was their breaking point, right? And he says this.
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that work for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
Now, here's the thing. He said, I kicked the guy out. I'm done. He started taking employees of mine, helpers, workers of my estate, my spa at Mar-a-Lago, and that made me feel some type of way, right? And he's like, I'm going to kick the guy out. We're done, right? But then something very interesting happens, okay? As he's on his Air Force One, he says some crazy bombshell to the sound of this. He says, Jeffrey Epstein stole Virginia Giuffre from him, okay, when she worked at Mar-a-Lago Spa. Now, here's the thing. We now understand that this is one of the things that she claimed. If you don't know who Virginia Giuffre is, she is one of the main accusers, one of the main people that was spearheading and championing, trying to get Jeffrey Epstein locked up for a long time. She was one of the main accusers and one of the main victims. And now, of course, she passed away a few months ago. And of course, people are still wondering if she actually did it herself or if her life was taken against her will. That is still something that we still do not know, but they did rule it a self type of situation, if you get what I'm saying. But nonetheless, she was not of age when she was working for Trump at the Mar-a-Lago Spa. That is a guaranteed, proven fact now. And what's crazy is that he had a problem with him taking employees of his from him, but he didn't have a problem with the fact that these were all underage women or people. That's a huge problem in my personal opinion. And now we're hearing him saying that, yeah, he was stealing them from me. And I told him, that's enough. No more. Don't do that anymore. And then Epstein continued to do so. And that's why he broke up with him. That's why he wasn't friends with him. That's why it was persona non grata. Please explain to me how him taking and moving underage people wasn't the main reason, and not the fact that he was just taking workers from you. That doesn't make any sense, right? The main focus should be the fact that these are underage people. That should be the main concern. Yo, what are you doing moving these people around, taking them to your island, X, Y, and Z? I'm not cool with that. I'm calling police. It's a wrap, right? So again, something's very weird about this. We got the video too where he talks about how Virginia Giuffre was taken, that how other employees, possibly underage girls, were stolen from him. And again, why didn't he do anything about it? But before we go into that video, we got to take a look at this article. So President Trump said convicted SO Jeffrey Epstein stole Virginia Giuffre from his Mar-a-Lago club, a stunning admission that could increase scrutiny on his relationship with the late financier. And, we'll just say, we ain't going to say financier, okay? With the late monster, okay? With the boogeyman, okay? Even as his administration seeks to change the subject from Epstein. They've been trying, but they have not been successful because Trump keeps talking here, and he's saying some things now that everyone is literally clutching their pearls right now, especially with what he just said here. This is very bad. Okay. And the fact that people are looking at Virginia Giuffre and making her sound insane. And now we're hearing that he's even backing up the claims that she was stolen, taken from him to the Epstein Island to be basically groomed and taken advantage of. This is absolutely insane. Trump was speaking to reporters Tuesday when he was asked about his comments over the weekend about a falling out with Epstein because he took employees from his business. So he said, like we just played a second ago, okay, he took people that worked for me. I told him, don't do it anymore. And he continued to do it, obviously, right? This was him telling the reporters that he barred Epstein from Mar-a-Lago, his estate in Palm Beach, Florida. I said, stay the hell out of here. Remember, persona non grata, right? The answer is yes. So they were pressing him about these stolen employees, right? And if they were young women. Trump said many of them worked at his club spa. So many of the employees that were there working at Trump's Mar-a-Lago spa were also women, young women that were actually stolen and taken by Jeffrey Epstein. And yet he had no problem with that. He had a problem with the fact that he was taking his girls. He didn't have a problem with the fact that these girls were not of age and maybe Epstein was doing some bad things with these girls, right? So anyway, the answer is yes. They were in the spa. I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. And he was fine. Then, not long after that, he'd do it again. So, Trump was asked specifically whether Epstein had stolen Giuffre, who was one of Epstein's most prominent survivors and led the charge calling for his arrest. Yeah, she was a huge mouthpiece, okay? Huge name in this whole situation. And of course, she lost her life in April, okay? And she's said to have met Epstein, Epstein's associate, okay, Ghislaine Maxwell, while she was working at Mar-a-Lago as a teenager. So how could that even be possible, right? But Trump was just upset that he was taking employees, taking his good-looking young workers, not the fact that they were taking underage girls and doing God knows what. That is very weird. Okay, so he says about Virginia Giuffre, I think she worked at the spa. This is what he said. I think so. I think that was one. Yeah, I think that was one of the people. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. None whatsoever. She didn't have anything bad to say about Mar-a-Lago, but she did get taken from Mar-a-Lago. She was found, recruited, groomed in Mar-a-Lago, and then sent over to be trained, okay, and tortured by the likes of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, okay? This is absolutely insane. Again, he says, this is the other part that seems a little bit interesting here, okay? Because even the White House communications director, Stephen Chung, said in a statement last week that Trump booted Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for being, quote unquote, a creep. Calling him a creep those are some very choice words. A creep is a creep. A creep means he's out here doing bad things and lusting after people that he, littles and stuff like that. People who are not of age, taking them from under your nose and taking them over to an island and doing God knows what. So if you knew he was a creep, why didn't you do anything about it? These are the questions I have, guys. These are just the questions I have. Okay. And of course, the Trump administration has been, receiving a whole lot of pressure over the past few weeks. Duh. But at the same time, this is insane. We got to share and look at this video here. This is him in the flesh, guys, in Air Force One saying this stuff. I mean, this is crappy quality, but literally in Technicolor. Take a listen.
Mr. President, Epstein has a certain reputation, obviously. Just curious, were some of the workers that were taken from you, were some of them young women?
Were some of them
young women?
Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad. But that story's been pretty well out there. And the answer is yes, they were.
Yes, they were young
Yeah,
women?
So one thing he's not denying, okay, is that there were girls that were taken from his spa to go over to Epstein's Island, that jump on the Lolita Express and be on Epstein's Island. He's not denying that. That's for sure.
In the spa.
In the spa.
Yeah, it's people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago. And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, does that include Virginia Jeffrey?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. None whatsoever.
Okay. No complaints whatsoever about us, about the Mar-a-Lago spa. We were great. One of the best ever, best spas in the world, that kind of thing. You know, typical Trump jargon, of course. But here's the thing. If she was taken from there, and there's also a history of him being a creep and maybe possibly going up to girls and trying to recruit these girls, why wasn't there ever police called? Like I said, why wasn't there ever law enforcement got involved in this particular situation? But then the other thing I do want to point out, though, too, is we got to look at the other side of the fence here too, because I know it's very easy for us to just kind of throw Trump under the bus or think anything nefarious and think anything sinister. We can also look at this other side of maybe he didn't know at all. Maybe he knew that these girls were getting recruited by Jeffrey, but he didn't know what they were getting recruited for. Maybe he truly thought that they were only going over there to do massages and work personally for Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe that was what it was. I mean, I'm trying to entertain that thought, you know what I mean? And trying to give this situation the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, this is just too strange. Why would he say he was being a creep, right? Why would they say he was booted because he was a creep? Creep is a very specific word, okay? It's a very, very distinct and very descriptive word about a particular person, right? So again, it just doesn't make any sense. Clearly there was something going on. Clearly there was a problem, and no one acted upon it. No one went to law enforcement, to anyone to try to stop this guy from doing what he did. So again, like I said, this admission is very, very bad. Because again, you're best friends with this dude for 10 to 15, forget it, 15 years. So much that you're sending him, writing little birthday cards, being like you're an enigma, and being an enigma never ages type of thing. Just really encrypted, like very cryptic types of messages. And you didn't know anything about this guy? You shared women. You chased after women as well together. Okay? And yet you didn't know anything about this guy like this? You called him an enigma. You showed him love. You knew him for 15 years, and you didn't know how he was operating out here in these streets at all? Not whatsoever? No one came up to you? None of these other employees that were stolen from you ever came back to you and said, give you any scathing information about Jeffrey Epstein? I'm just saying, it just seems very, very strange that he would just let his friend do what he did and just kick him out. And that's it. Like I said, there's a possibility he had no earthly clue. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know if I can believe that. That's way too close for comfort. Again, this admission, very scathing, very much a bombshell. And now he's going to have to explain this later on. That's the thing. How's he going to get out of this one? Because this is some bad stuff. This is not the only girl that was recruited. Virginia Giuffre was not the only girl that was recruited from Mar-a-Lago Spa. He said helpers, workers were taken from that place. That sounds more than just one person. So again, how's he gonna finesse this one? It's gonna be very interesting, guys. What say you guys on this situation? This is pretty crazy, scathing information. This is literally mind-blowing. And I don't know how the administration is going to be able to get out of this one, because it's only going to get worse from here, it looks like. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will land like a dud and people will move on from this situation. But I see this as a massive bombshell. But what you think? What say you? Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Hit that like button down below. Crush that subscribe button. We'll talk here soon. Man, I don't know what happened, but this has been a wild couple weeks, y'all. And it's only going to get crazier, I have a feeling. Stay tuned. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.
Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild.